This podcast holds nothing sacred. This is Life, Tech, and Sundry. And what is Sundry? It's our experiences put in a melting pot to the internet. So join us on this wild ride called the LTS Podcast. Follow us at LT Sundry on Twitter, LTS.pod on Instagram, Life, Tech, and Sundry on YouTube, and all your favorite podcast distribution services. Stay frosty.
Picture this, a pink dog, a creepy farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and a series of terrifying, surreal monsters. Now, imagine if that beloved 90s cartoon wasn't just a piece of weird comedy, but a heavily coded animated retelling of unsolved missing persons cases from the American Midwest. It sounds like a late night Reddit fever dream, but internet culture is deeply convinced there is a real world body count hiding underneath the animation cells. Wild tales indeed. Salutations, I'm your host, Marcos Lopez, and you've tuned into LTS Out of Office, the show where we ruin yours and my childhood nostalgia with internet conspiracy theories. Buckle up and let's dive in. Let's kick this off by looking at the viral internet theory, claiming that the classic cartoon Courage the Cowardly Dog was secretly inspired by a string of real-world cold cases in, guess where? Kansas. You heard me? Kansas. Not the song, the state. Now, here's the setting. The show explicitly takes place in the fictional town of Nowhere, Kansas, placing the characters right in the desolate American Midwest. The geography, vast, completely flat expanses where your nearest neighbor is miles away and the horizon never ends. The isolation, the iconic weathered farmhouse is completely isolated from civilization, you heard me, mirroring the terrifying reality of rural crime scenes. The vulnerability, a setting where emergency response times are non-existent, meaning help is too far away to matter when something comes a-knocking or anything else. May that be Mother Nature or, unfortunately, for this episode that I'm trying to share to you, people. Now, the antagonists of this show with Courage the Cowardly Dog is theorists argue that iconic villains like Freaky Fred or Cats aren't just wacky cartoons. They represent stylized animated composites of real Midwestern drifters and serial killers, connecting the show's bizarre transients to historical cold cases involving travelers who targeted rural homes, in this case, the elderly or the elderly victims. Eustace and Muriel perfectly represent the prime targets of rural isolation and, unfortunately, their potential crimes. These elderly, trusting, and completely defenseless couples. Not so defenseless, by the way. They are very self-sufficient. You don't know this, but in the show, if you have a farm, hopefully you think that they're self-sufficient. And trusting, well, there's not that many people. So guess what? They're gonna have hospitality. So they have that. Anytime they maybe could help someone that's in need, they'll help. So that's on that side, they can be taken advantage of. The old school homesteaders who are completely detached from modern communication or safety networks. Now, let me hit you with the nuance. The line between discovering hidden artistic subtext and unhinged internet projection is razor, I repeat, razor thin. Now, let me hit you with a reality check. forcing real world murder dossiers onto a 90s cartoon is exactly like Bruce Wayne buying an entire restaurant just to look for hidden mob messages in the soup. It's an intense, exhausting search for hidden dark meaning in something that was built for completely different reasons. Love of the game, right? Me just throwing my hat in that statement just to always give you maybe both sides of a story. Now, to be completely fair, the series creator, John R. Dilworth, has explicitly stated that the show was inspired by classic horror cinema and surrealism, not local police blotters or gossip, if you will. This was just an inspiration of something totally different. Now, the brilliant atmospheric design of the show stands on its own four paws, its own artistic merits, without needing internet urban legends to make it valid. Yeah, they stand on their own because a lot of people watched it and it became part of their upbringing. Like me, remember, don't forget to return the slab. And yeah, let's move on, right? Something that helped us grow and to appreciate art. Like it or not, it was unique. Now, even if the creator explicitly denies it, why does the dark theory continue to resonate so deeply with millions of adult fans online? The answer lies in how perfectly the show's animation captures the deep psychological terror of rural isolation. Some people love this rural isolation. They dream for it or they search for it. So it's a 50-50 thing of it being a horror or maybe even a dream. The psychology of the dog's eye view. The brilliance of Courage the Cowardly Dog and the core reason it feels so much like a true crime documentary to adult viewers is its total mastery of perspective, point of view, the unreliable narrator. The entire world is processed strictly through Courage's eyes. To a tiny dog, a normal mailman or a strange traveler naturally looks like a terrifying, distorted monster. What does this mean as a lens? Well, it's hyperbolic animation used to convey how a pet experiences the overwhelming scale of the human world. Now, guess what? If the dog tries to tell you something, there's going to be a gap. Courage tries desperately to warn Muriel and Eustace about incoming danger, but they can't understand his frantic barks. And guess what? Because of all this, it builds up a horror, which basically by mirroring the sheer helplessness of an eyewitness to in this case to a crime, who is completely ignored or disbelieved by authority figures. And guess what? This also is accompanied by the vibe of the unknown. The show leans heavily into liminal spaces, dust storms, and the quiet, heavy dread of the Midwestern plains at night. And guess what? The atmosphere, this whole thing that I just described basically captures the psychological weight of knowing that out in the darkness, there is absolutely nothing stopping the unknown from walking up to your door, the real world anchor. Well, how did this all kick off? The theory maintains its grip because the American Midwest does have a haunting, heavily documented history of unsolved, isolated crimes. Mind you, an example that comes to mind, it's not the Midwest, but it's close. It's New Mexico. With Lex Luthor, the actor, though, he was, I think, 90 something years old with his wife and dogs. They all that unfortunately the dog also passed away in this one. I think multiple dogs. The two family members, the gentleman I think died first, and then the wife died second, and then the dog died last, which is a horrifying thing. overall. And guess what? They lived isolated. They lived alone. Unfortunately, things went down. Now, the connection, right? The cartoon's ambient dread feels deeply grounded in the real world and its history of rural homestead vulnerabilities. The cartoon was undeniably intense and atmospheric for a children's afternoon program. The reality check. Let's not forget, the pacing through the show's eerie episode feels exactly like the opening tension of Indiana Jones. You think you're just tracking a fun, stylized adventure, but the ambient environment is constantly trying to trigger a deep ancestral fear of getting trapped in the middle of nowhere. Let's give credit where it's due. Creating a children's cartoon that perfectly encompasses or encapsulates basically the slow burn and its dread of a psychological thriller is an absolute masterpiece of television writing. There's going to be an achievement to this. They managed to code complex emotional concepts like gaslighting, isolation, and anxiety into a cartoon, a format that completely holds up decades later. But the viral theory exposes something far larger than just a dark reinterpretation of a 90s cartoon. It highlights our modern, almost dangerous cultural obsession with filtering all media that we consume through the lens of true crime. Okay, let that stick in. Let that stick in. Now, what does this mean? Well, an obsession. The true crime filter. To wrap this up in a pretty bow, we have to look at why internet culture insists on retrofitting tragic real-world backstories onto completely innocent pieces of pop culture. Why? Tell me why. Well, it's called the content mill. Short form platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels thrive on ruined childhood content because it guarantees immediate emotional engagement and it creates a loop. I'm a victim of this. I'll be honest. Once I heard that this could potentially be, I heard this before, so I had to do my research. Turning a nostalgic cartoon into an unsolved crime cipher is an elite growth hack for view metrics, but it's only for the views. The apophenia effect. The human brain is evolutionarily hardwired to find complex patterns and malicious intent where absolutely none exists, and it creates a trap. We connect an abstract cartoon set in Kansas to real-world crimes in Kansas, ironically, simply because the mind craves a clean narrative resolution. The true crime boom. We live in an era where true crime is dominant media, a genre as a culture, a pop culture tag, if you will. We have trained ourselves to view all art through a bloody lens. And guess what? This creates a situation. Consumers are so overexposed to real world trauma content that they subconsciously think it onto fictional narratives. The erasure of art by forcing a real world crime dossier onto the show, any show, we inadvertently rob, ironically, the animators of their credit for simply being highly creative and beautifully weird. And all of this comes with a cost. To reduce raw creative surrealism down to a basic police blotter transcription. Now, retrofitting real-world missing persons cases onto a cartoon internet theory walks a delicate ethical line. Ethics? Who heard about that? Raise your hand in the comments if you've ever heard about ethics. May that be with family members or in the classroom. I know I have, and I can understand this point. So this obsession feels exactly like the EPA official from Ghostbusters, arbitrarily shutting down the containment grid. The internet opens up the dark, real world case files just to fuel a fun cartoon theory, completely unequipped to handle the actual gravity of the real world tragedies. They are disturbing. At the end of the day, fan theories and digital lore keep legacy independent medium alive. Whether the Kansas connection is fact or completely fiction, the theory ensures that new generations are still actively analyzing and watching, hopefully, Courage the Cowardly Dog. Decades after its broadcast ended, Kansas cold case theory is almost certainly modern digital folklore rather than documented production history. But it proves that the show captured the feeling of rural isolation so perfectly that we assume it must be based on reality. If this deep dive into the dark corners of cartoon history gave you a reality dose of existential dread, hit the subscribe button, share this episode, and tell me in the comments, did this show terrify you as a kid or present day? But what about, have you ever talked about it with anyone else? Let me know in the comments. Producing these out of office shows takes a copious amount of caffeine, and tossing a few bucks in Buy Me a Coffee link is what keeps the lights running. Until next time, stay safe, watch out for the creepy farmhouses, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Stay frosty!